Hey, this is Notser, and today we're taking a look at the Tier 10 Japanese heavy cruiser, or super heavy cruiser, Yoshino. We are on the map north. This is a work in progress ship. This is my first impression. The build is on the screen. It is sort of a hybrid. I'm taking my, Japanese battleship tank commander, and then I'm marrying it with a double rudder shift build. And do you know why I'm doing that? Well, if you've played the Azuma or played against it, you probably know already. This ship, just like her sister ship, lacks basic armor. Now, not quite as bad as the Azuma. The Azuma has 25 millimeters all the way around. The Yoshino gets 30 millimeters at the top of the deck and the top of the hull. That's the only difference from an armor scheme between the two that I've noticed. They both have the same citadel height, the same citadel position. They've got basically the exact same model. Just one has the ability to equip torpedoes, the one you're watching, and the other one, the Tier 9, does not. Now, speaking of those torpedoes, that is another feature of the Yoshino that's kind of appealing to players. And recently, Wargaming announced that they were going to include 20-kilometer range torpedoes on the ship. We had heard rumors of 12-kilometer range, similar to the Zao, but the version that I'm testing does not have that option. I only have the 20-kilometer range Shimakaze torpedoes. Not that that's the end of the world, it's just that I would kind of like to test both. Maybe. Now, I'm going to just send my torpedoes towards very obvious areas for the enemy to congregate. And one of those areas is near the island corner. I love to try and punish this because nearly every single player in the game looks to try and duck and cover, especially if they're under fire. And the plan is quite simple. Fire at the enemy, force them to maybe retreat. Maybe there's already someone there in that corner who's looking to maybe punish me or the friendly Z-52. I will try and punish. But I'm not going to punish it as well as something like the Alaska, in my opinion, because the Alaska has better tankability, and its armor-piercing shell is more usable. So it feels really weird to play a battlecruiser with a 310mm gun, and for it to still feel inadequate from an armor-piercing standpoint. I have had more ricochets, more shatters with this ship armor-piercing than any other battlecruiser, save for the Azuma, because they're literally using the exact same guns. So in that regard, it's really disappointing, because battle cruisers should punish other cruisers. They're literally designed for that. And in fact, their armor-piercing shell should be able to punch through into an enemy battleship citadel if given the right circumstances. And of course the Republic citadels me from that kind of angle. I don't have any armor that stops the Republic. This has 25 millimeters bow stern. It also has 30 millimeters top of the deck and the top of the hull, which is all vulnerable from any angle to the Republic's armor-piercing shell. I just have to not take another shell. That's the only recourse I have to fighting this guy, and it's not feeling pretty good at this point. He immediately, his teammate, the friendly Azuma for him, immediately sets me on fire after I had to use my damage control just to survive and maintain good control of the ship. But I am booking it. I am sailing as far away as I possibly can, and I'm also trying to actively maneuver, which is not too hard in the ship, given the double rudder shift. But I can't imagine players would ever pick anything other than that. It's a ship that needs to be at max range and actively maneuvering for you to mitigate damage. If you are, mid-tier or mid-range, you're not going to have a chance. Just straight up not going to have a chance. But we will be getting an opportunity to try out that armor-piercing shell against a potential target. This enemy Hindenburg is pushing forward, fairly close to my A point. I didn't choose to switch to armor-piercing on the first salvo. I wasn't confident that it would even do good damage and he would maintain the angle. So I follow up with another high explosive, and then I switch over to armor piercing. Then I'm going to send my torpedoes on cooldown, hoping that I can hit something. You have to send them, Otherwise, there's not a possible way to hit. And because you kind of lack your ability to stealth torpedo, it really is just send and pray that the enemy is going to sail into your area. That's pretty much what I'm doing over here against the Hindenburg as well. And just taking a quick check at my teammates. It's not looking good. Plus the Hindenburg, he's slightly angling, and that doesn't look good for me. I don't have the gun caliber to deal with that. I don't have the consistency in the guns to really punish that the way I want to. We keep overpinning this guy. I just want to stick in the ship and citadel him. That's all I want. And yep, he's turning in. He definitely is engaging us. We're going to angle back and try and mitigate. If he fires high explosive, there's not a portion of the ship that can mitigate it. Every single angle will take full damage, and he's just going to laugh at us. But thankfully, he's using armor piercing. He is getting baited into that maneuverability that the Yoshino has. What? Shells just hit the AA gun and did no damage. Okay. Okay, that's just great. Absolutely great. But we're still alive, and we're still in a fairly reasonable position. And I'm just trying to punish this guy around the island, and I think we're going to do it. We get him almost dead, and I think he's going to heal back up a little bit. So, Yoshino. It can strike out, have good long-range fire support. It has great maneuverability. It has the utility with defensive AA or hydroacoustic. You cannot, I don't believe, select a fighter. You can only select a scout aircraft, which is kind of an interesting choice, given that this is already a long-range ship. It is a tier 10, so in slot 6, I could equip range on the ship, and then on top of that, I could use my scout aircraft. I could make this have better range than pretty much every ship in the game, save for a couple doing just the same extreme. But I don't know that I would want to do that. Like, I need every point for mitigation and for concealment and usability. It's just a ship line that requires very precise play by the player. He can't, or she can't, fumble over the situation and find themselves broadside to a target, because you're just going to get blapped out. You're gone. You just don't have the armor that something like the Alaska has. And, you know, on top of that, you have to consider the type of targets that are out there. There's a lot of ships that don't care about 30 millimeters. Pretty much the only ships that care about 30 millimeters are French ships outside the Republic, and then all the American battleships outside the Georgia. Pretty much those two will care definitely about the 30 millimeters versus 25. But the rest, you're effectively the exact same target to them. Now, we got the enemy Azuma on approach. Obviously, I'm basically his mirror at tier 10 versus tier 9. But the game's not going very well. You know, they have 3 bases. I'm attempting to engage, but I have to stay back. This is what I have to do. I don't have a choice. It's not like the Yamato, where certain opponents in certain angles, you can basically be AP safe, and even a little bit of HE safe. There's nothing safe for you in this ship. Light cruisers laugh at you with IFHE. Heavy cruisers laugh at you. Battleships laugh at you. Aircraft carriers are probably the only class that doesn't laugh at you, because you're a giant ship that can maneuver like a DD and has great AA protection. Honestly, I felt pretty good. And you're going to see later in this game just how good it feels. But this enemy Azuma is kind of sailing into my torpedo path. And I really do enjoy this dynamic. Oh, is he going to sail into it? Of course, it doesn't cause a flood. But he is burning, and I think he's going to burn down to us. There he goes. All right. We're still in the game. Enemy Republic's over there. He's eyeing that broadside, and oh, the Iowa. But the Iowa, of these 2 targets, I want to get stuck in with this guy, because I have the armor to cause some of his shells to ricochet. Whereas with the Republic, I don't have anything, and this guy's firing from like 25 kilometers. So you can imagine just how fun this can be at times, given the right opponent. But we were able to angle back before the Iowa. I noticed that he fired just before I committed to turning. I wanted to try and finish the turn before his next salvo. It worked out perfectly. It really is very responsive. It has great maneuverability. The gun systems themselves feel really responsive as well. Oh, we got 2 fires. That's great. Well, he's probably going to burn down if he can't put it out. Yeah, it looks like he can't put it out. And, you know, angle back, try and mitigate. Okay. Okay. That works out just fine. And, yeah, he can't put the fire out. He has opponent. Someone firing from the rear, Z-52. The enemy Republic is still over there on that flank, and he's probably still looking at us to try and do damage if we were spotted. We're not spotted, so I figure, okay. We're at, you know, near maximum gun range. We're just going to try and engage this target. So, this isn't the best gun velocity. This isn't Soviet gun velocity, but it's better than the Americans. So in that regard, you can have a little bit more impact on the map further out, but I don't have radar. I don't have the high armor zone on the outside of the ship to absorb high explosive and armor piercing. I basically have a soft outer layer of fleshy tissue that wants to take full damage and burn from all my opponents, and I don't know. I just feel like the Azuma and the Yoshino don't have enough good going for it. It would be one thing if it had the absolute best armor piercing and high explosive. It was a glass cannon. But the armor piercing is honestly mediocre. The Kronstadt, the Stalingrad, the Alaska, they all have better. So in those situations where you get a chance to fire armor piercing at, say, a cruiser or even a battleship at certain ranges, you're going to miss that armor piercing that's attached to other battlecruisers. And honestly, this high explosive, it's good, but it's not that good. And once again, we just barely avoid a citadel. It's really reliant on my opponent's aiming ability. I don't like relying on my opponent's aiming ability to survive. I like using my armor coupled with active maneuvering to mitigate damage, and it's just not there with this ship. It's just very, very, very vulnerable. And we're trying to fire on this guy. Unfortunately, our scout aircraft is defeated. You know, the cooldown's done. Friendly Conqueror is attempting to engage this Z-52, and I think I'm going to attempt to try and move forward and maybe capture D-Point. The game itself, it's not looking good, right? We got about 5 minutes left, and I don't know how we win this game. We're about 200 points behind. What can I do for my team that no one else can do? Or what does the Yoshino do well enough that I'm confident that I can go 1 versus 1 against someone and deal with them? Well, I think the high explosive accuracy is very high. I felt like the maneuverability is also quite nice. I don't have hydroacoustic. And honestly, I kind of wish I did, because I think what I want to do is I want to capture this base, and I want to try and push into the enemy DD. I have the rudder to do it. It's just whether I can predict accurately. Now, the Conqueror is taking dive bomb attention, and I'm aware that that is definitely a possibility. I will be doing that, and oh, they found the Shimakaze. Somehow they found it. Can they kill it? It is a monster, of course. And I predict a turn, hoping that I'll be able to help out. And the Lexington does everything that I tried to do. He kills him with his attack rocket. But we're not spotted anymore. And we're capturing this base. This is a pretty good situation. It's going to force the enemy aircraft carrier to try and scout us, which, you know, we don't have the best AA detection, but we don't have the worst. And I'm also not running a concealment module in slot 5. If I was running a concealment module, the concealment of, I think it's like 13, yeah, 13.2 would probably be in the realm of, honestly, I think like 11.9-ish in that range. So equivalent to maybe a North Carolina in its concealment. That's not too bad at tier 9, or at tier 10, sorry. Ooh. And obviously the defensive fire works just fine. It is very strong AA for a cruiser slot. Definitely. Not quite the Alaska, but it's more than adequate And note that teammates just burned down the Republic. We actually have an advantage in this game. First time. And I'm just going to push south. There is an aircraft carrier and there is an enemy DD. But I have great maneuverability. I honestly have great AA protection. I feel pretty confident with high explosive that I can deal with both of these opponents. Now, it is a risk, but I would like to test it. And we catch sight of one of the two potential sets by the Z-52. It was on the right side of this island, so I'm going to expect that his momentum either pulls him to the left or is pulling him even further to the right. And I am very vulnerable. If I leave myself vulnerable, I want to try and actively maneuver, and oh, we just fortunately guessed right. So obviously the torpedoes went behind us. Enemy aircraft still overhead, but not for long, and those torpedoes, they look like they'll be harmless. So the maneuverability is great. The gun systems, high explosive at least, is pretty awesome. But the real difference maker that's attached to this ship versus other ships are the torpedoes. And if you've ever used Shimakaze 20-kilometer range torpedoes, you're going to know that, yeah, it's cool that you can reach out and touch an enemy that far away, but it gives a long time for an opponent to dodge just by choosing to turn left versus right, or choosing to drop their speed by half a knot. And that's the kind of frustration I still feel on this ship. I'm still frustrated that we didn't get to test the 12-kilometer range torpedoes. Honestly, I feel like that would be more useful to me personally. It might cause me to change my build, but then you have the armor, which is terrible. I honestly feel too close to the Z-52. And that's hilarious to say, but that's honestly what it feels like to play. This is everything but a battlecruiser. It has the gun caliber. It has, honestly, the maneuverability. It has the duration of fire negatively that makes it a battlecruiser, but its armor is so mediocre. It's just so bad for a ship this size. I just don't know if I could get over that. And enemy aircraft carriers on approach. I, of course, set up my AA so that I always have it focused towards the enemy as he's attacking. I would love to drop off detection so that I could maybe ambush the Z-52. Maybe he feels the urge to leave the smoke. I'm trying to blind fire this guy, but it's just not working out. And I think he caught on to me wanting to blind fire because he all of a sudden stops firing his gun. You know, he probably saw that my gun was traversed towards him. And he's like, okay, we're not pulling the trigger anymore. He was actually sending torpedoes and bailing on his smoke. Ooh, interesting. Take a quick shot at that guy. We're actively maneuvering for these torpedoes. I love the maneuverability. It really is a treat at long range, but you're going to see these torpedoes, they pretty much are exactly what you would expect. It takes forever for them to get to the target, and quite frankly, 20-kilometer range torpedoes, it's really about flooding the water and having a chance to perhaps hit a stray torpedo. But in actuality, you're probably never going to hit most of those torpedoes. And if you never hit your torpedoes, there's nothing differentiating this from the Azuma other than 5 measly millimeters of armor. And on top of, the Azuma comparison, let's talk about the Zao. Okay, it's a tier 10 Japanese cruiser, and it can basically do all of this plus better concealment, plus better torpedoes, plus it has better gun accuracy, and plus it has better armor piercing, for sure, both in accuracy and consistency. I'm just wishing that this would be a better version than what we have currently, and maybe it will be at some point. Thanks for watching my content. If you would like to watch more of my videos, you can check out the most recent and most relevant upload. Also, you can subscribe by clicking that in. I do daily World of Warship content. We cover first impressions, how-tos, carry games, news articles, you name it, we cover it. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.